I come from a family of 5 boys and 1 girl. I was the youngest boy in the family, and Irene, my sister, was the youngest in the family by far. She was 6.5 years younger than me. My mother come from a good, respectable old Church of England family. Her father, Jack Yorkins, was a station master on the Macaulay railway station. Although Dad never followed the religion, we suspected he might have gone in one door of the church and out the other, never to be seen there again. Back in those days, when I was around about 2 years of age, my dad was working as a wharfie on the Victoria docks. Now back in those years, they never had the sophisticated lifting equipment that they've got today, and we suspected that may have been the reason that my father developed a heart condition. The local doctor said to him, "Look, Bill," he said, if you don't give away this job on the wharf, I can guarantee one day," he said, "you'll just drop dead on the job." So Dad heeded his advice and he left the wharf. And being at loose ends and not knowing what to do, we had some friends of ours who were carnival people, and they convinced Dad to get a couple of rides together and some games and join the carnival circuit on the country shows. Our oldest brother Alan had showed some potential as an academic, and he'd just been enrolled in the local high school, and Mum and Grandma decided that this would be terribly unfair to take the boy out of school at this vital time of his learning. So it was decided that Alan would live with my grandparents while we were away. In the meantime, we packed the old Chev truck up and we set on our way to go to the shows in South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland. Now back in those days, a lot of the roads, country roads, were not sealed like they are today. And I can remember there was Dad driving, I was in the front sitting on Mum's knee, and Frank and Bill and Norm were in the back. And we were driving on this country road, and the offside wheels of the Chev had started to drift in the gravel. And in slow motion, the whole truck turned over on its side, on the passenger side. Now my father weighed in excess of 16 stone, and he fell on top of Mum and I, which was not all that pleasant. Whilst in the back of the truck, Frank, Billy and Norm were rolling around like marbles. Dad eventually climbed out of the driver's door of the truck like a soldier getting out of a tank, and fortunately for us, a local farmer come along with his tractor, hitched it up to the truck and pulled it back onto its wheels. Now there were some very, very colourful characters among the show people. One that springs to mind was a fellow by the name of Marco. He was a snake charmer. He had this pit of snakes where he'd get in there and show people how to handle snakes and avoid them and all that sort of stuff. And some of the locals in the carnival brigade said that Marco had been bitten more times. He probably had more venom in him than the snakes. That saying, as mad as a snake, we really think originated with Marco because he was quite eccentric. There was one particular occasion my mother was telling me that Dad was working the penny on the square game when a young fellow was there with his girlfriend, and he got what we call in the groove, where he couldn't miss. Every time he threw the penny, it got on a square and he won a prize. Dad had the shortest temper at the best of times, but this was really trying him out. So before he blew his top, he left Billy and Norm to look after the game, and he went for a walk to cool down. He come across Marco, and Marco said, "What's the trouble, Billy?" He said, "You look like the boy that shot his mother and father to go to the orphans' picnic." And Dad said, "There's a young joke around there with his girlfriend." He said, he's bleeding me bloody dry. He said, "He's going to send me broke." Marco said, "Don't worry about it, Bill. Go back to the game. I'll be around there directly." Now, apparently, according to Mum, it was a pretty warm day. Round the corner comes Marco, and he's got an overcoat on. He sidles up to the young bloke playing the game, reaches in his pocket, pulls out the snake and throws it on the table in front of the young bloke. The girl shrieked and jumped back, and the young bloke started shaking like a leaf and jumped back too. Marco picked up the snake, whacked it in his pocket, winked at the old man and toddled off. After a while, when the young bloke thought he'd regained his composure, he decided to continue playing, which was a vital mistake because he'd lost his balance. And not only did he lose all the money that he'd won, but quite a bit of his own. And so the Jacobsons ate very, very well that night. Another bloke who was a character was a fellow by the name of Snowy Willoughby. We were in this very small country town, and Snowy decided to introduce a mermaid to his to his show. So he engaged the services of a rather carefree lass from the local town, and he put a fish's tail on her made out of canvas, and then to make her authentic, he stripped her to the waist, and he painted her with bloody silver frost, and he sat her on the side of above the ground pool, and then he got up on the spruiking board and he said, "Come in and see the mermaid, she's feeding her babies now." What he didn't realise, not being of a medical background, that the human skin's got to be able to breathe, to exist. And what he had done by painting this girl with silver frost had blocked up all the pores of her skin. So after a while she toppled into the water and started floating around like a dead mullet. They whipped her off to the local bush hospital, and Snowy had to pack up his gear and beat a hasty retreat out of town before they lynched him. Another bloke that I remember well, I was very fond of, was a fellow by the name of Waxy Elliott. He had one horse and a single two-wheeled wagon, and he used to come up with all the latest gadgets that he'd buy from a warehouse somewhere. And I went round there one day and he had the latest one that he wanted to show me. He had this deep sea diver with a little tube running out of its back, and he would pop it into a goldfish bowl of water, and he'd blow into the tube and put his finger over the end of the tube, and the diver would sink to the bottom. Then he'd release the pressure and the diver would slowly come to the top, blowing bubbles, just like a proper diver. Well, I sat there in complete amazement at this. I couldn't believe how good this was. He also was a character in as much as one of his legs from the knee down was made of tin, and he would roll his pants up and let me tap his leg, and then I'd tap my own leg to try to get the same sound, and I used to get so terribly frustrated when I couldn't do that. He was a remarkable bloke. Most of the showies had trucks and vans to cart their stuff, and when they'd moved from one show to another, Waxy used to go cross-country. He knew every back road and paddock there was, and by the time we'd get to the next show, in our cars and trucks and vans and all that sort of stuff, Waxy would be already there, set up and ready to go. Just a remarkable bloke.